So fresh off your trip to Guatemala,
Yeah.
now to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, distinguished member, world champion, Olympic coach, world championship coach. Your accolades are just getting greater as you get older.
Well, thanks. I got a lot of great help. So, yeah, it's wrestling's been a good thing for me. It's treated me well, and it's given me a great life.
When we look at the distinguished members, there's a lot of names that are etched in stone, and you're still in your 40s and you're getting this type of accolade. I mean, what's it mean to walk in this building and know that you are among one of the greats to ever?
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like that. I feel like all my heroes are in this building. Not all of my heroes are in this building, but many, many, many of them are honored in this building. So to think that your name's just even included in that conversation is pretty cool.
Is there ever any hesitation to be like, man, that building though, it's in Stillwater, and you were a Hawkeye, and I was sitting in Stillwater. They don't seem to mix too well all that time.
No, that's not true. That's on the surface. That's that collegiate competition image. But honestly, John Smith is one of my heroes, and Leroy was too in the Smith family and what they've meant to wrestling and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. This is like hallowed ground, and it's an honor for me to be here. And of course, I was here as a young man when I was in college to compete, and I liked it. I enjoyed it then, and I've always had an appreciation for others who appreciate wrestling, right? So whether it's you're here in Stillwater or you're in State College or you're in Timbuktu, and now we go to, I do a lot of international travel where we're in Russia and Krasnoyarsk, at the Regan, and you're literally in the dragon's lair, the belly of the beast, and they don't want you to win in that arena, but it's still exciting and fun, and you enjoy that because those people appreciate it at the same level that you appreciate it. When you go to Iran, I don't know if there's a more passionate fan base in the world than Iran, and I've been fortunate to go 5 or 6 times, and I competed there, and now I've coached there several times. So yeah, when you're in an environment like that, and Stillwater is the heart of wrestling in this country and in this world, and it will continue to be. So it's fun. I enjoy being here.
When Sandy was reading off the bio information, you're known for you got an NCAA title, you got a world title, but there's a lot of second places in that bio.
Yeah,
and we look at how
second guess.
Yeah, it makes you.
You sure you put the right guy in here?
I'm sitting there going, wow. I mean, but it goes to the build. I mean, you've got to finish. Nobody's going to finish first every single time out. That's never happened ever.
Right.
When you look at the totality of anybody's career, but what have you learned from those results over the years that shapes you now as a coach?
Yeah, so when I was a developmental coach, I used to kind of talk about this a little bit, and just really hyper-simplify our sport. If you look up wrestling, or to wrestle in the dictionary, right, it says to struggle. And we all struggle in life. Everybody has a struggle, right? Struggling with relationships, or struggling in business, or struggling in school, or whatever it may be. We all have struggles in
carpet struggles.
Yeah.
As Matt sometimes gets translated to carpet overseas.
Yes. Yeah, I always love that. You have the Russian announcer, and then you have the English translator, and it's the literal translation. The next wolves to the carpet, please.
The blue dress.
Yeah. So sometimes wrestlers get translated as wolves, and Matt is carpet. But, so I kind of lost my train of thought.
Developmental.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think that's reflective of that, right? You're just struggling. You're working. It's not easy. There's other people that are working really hard and care as much as you do about this thing, and it's when you do have victories, they're sweet, and that's why they're sweet. Because if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and nobody would want it anymore. I think that's kind of my vision on that.
When we look at the coaching path for you, I mean, almost the blueprint is, okay, you get done with college, okay, you wrestle internationally some, you're on a coaching staff usually at a college, but you did that for a little bit, but your true calling, it seems to have been with coaching and, again, developing freestyle wrestling. How much with I guess the rule change is getting back to a style that's more, I guess, Americanized, for lack of a better term. Has that changed how you were teaching with the previous rule set, or how much does that benefit your style of coaching?
I think it just benefits wrestling in general. I think that the rules now, not that we can't have small tweaks, but I think they're as good as they've been in 50 years. And, of course, going like from 72 forward up through about 96, they were pretty good too. And then they started messing with them, and adjusting them. But I think now we're in a really good space, and there's a lot of action. There's a lot of points being produced. And so I think they're good for everybody. And if you love wrestling, some people are engaged in winning, others are engaged in wrestling. And what I mean by that is they're driven by the puzzle of what wrestling is, right? And not just the accolade. And if you have that love for the puzzle, then the rules right now are really good for you. And so it's certainly changed. There's always changes with coaching, with rules interpretation, and a little bit of a way it will impact things tactically. And so I have to adjust with those times. But I had really good. I thought it was normal. I thought everybody had the same type of experience that I had when I was growing up, until I got out of high school and started realizing, well, wait a minute, you guys don't do it that way. And these people over here that are really great wrestlers, they don't do it that way either. And when I look back at that, I had some people that impacted me that were just way ahead of the game in their thinking, right? Might not always technically, but my father and my mother and our family, of course, they were great leaders. But Denny Campbell, Floyd Vaughn, Mark Sprague, and their families, Matt T.J. Campbell, Tom and Fritz Campbell, Mark Sprague, Matt Sprague, Justin Abdu. These are guys that...
Well, I threw a Canadian in there.
Yeah. So, Justin's from Moose Jaw, and his father, Frank, and his family, his mom and his sister, we're family friends, right? We're family friends. We started as wrestling friends, but we're family, literally family members now. And but Justin is from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, which is not far from Great Falls, Montana. It's maybe 4 hours, maybe 5 hours over the border. So
you say not far. It's relative Montana.
Well, when you're
not far. Yeah,
when you're in the West, that's not far.
5 hours. We're in 5 states from where we're at.
Yeah, you can barely get out of Montana in 5 hours, but you can get to Canada.
North to south, maybe.
North to south, not east to west.
Yeah.
I think we're 300 miles north to south and 5-something east to west.
It's an expanse.
It's a drive. But we were always on the same kids' circuits, and so, I was impacted by each of those people in some of the same areas and some different areas where, Floyd Vaughn and Mark Sprague were just visionaries in how they handled people. My dad was super intense and super competitive, but as much as he was that, the fact that he cared about the person before the wrestler always came through. Denny and his sons, they were a great wrestling family in Montana. They started programs that he started in North Montana Wrestling Club and had moved to a different city long before I started, and that ended up being the program that my dad coached for 30 plus years. And they were just tough, gritty, good people. T.J. Campbell was the guy and is the guy I was always trying to be as a wrestler. He just was phenomenal. And I think that set a tone for me. I had such a unique, positive experience as a young man that that's what impacts me. It drives the decisions I make on a day-to-day basis today with our national team.
When you went to USA Wrestling to work as a developmental coach, was the national team coaching thing kind of a long-term goal? Was that something that you really actually considered that might be a possibility?
When I moved out there to finish my competitive career, no, I was just wanting to compete, and I needed an environment that I knew I could put myself in the position I wanted to be in. And then when I got hired on, I knew I loved freestyle, of course, but, like you said, we all coach college. That's kind of the traditional path, is you coach in college, and you retire and you get a coaching job. And I did coach a little bit at Iowa, and I left that job specifically to focus on competition. So when I went there, I was not thinking about coaching. After I retired, one of my coaching mentors, Doc Bennett, he was one of my coaches as a resident athlete at the training center. And he said, hey, I think I'm going to retire in a couple of years, and you should look at this job. I think you would be very good at it. And he was talking about the national developmental coaching job, and I was like, well, what is it? And so he explained it to me, and we talked about it. And over a 1.5 or 2 year period, I asked him a question or two again, and as I got to thinking about probably being done, I still wasn't sure I was going to retire, even though I was 35. Won the Worlds in 6, didn't make the team 7 and 8, had some health issues, and I thought in 8 I was on a trajectory where if I could keep going, I thought I had a real shot at winning the Worlds again in 9. But I kind of just, time was telling me. So as I was thinking about that stuff, I thought about that job more and more, and that's kind of what led me into, USA Wrestling for sure.
What makes you a natural at it? Because a lot of people need to get their feet under them when it comes to coaching. It just seems like you took to it immediately.
I don't know. I like the experience I talked about. I mean, my dad was a coach for 30 years, so I lived it. I lived around it. I saw a great coach in action every day.
Did you find yourself, some people say this about their parents when they're raising kids, they don't want to make the mistakes that their parents did. Did you actually kind of saw maybe some of the coaching do's and don'ts from your dad? Be like,
sure.
I definitely know I'm not going to do that, or I definitely know I'm going to do that.
Yeah. None of us are perfect humans, and I make plenty of mistakes still, but hopefully the right choices outweigh the.
So you had a career in coaching before you had a career in coaching.
Yeah, and around, like I said, I was around great ones, right? So the ones I mentioned, plus of course Dan Gable at Iowa, and other great coaches there. Kevin Jackson was national coach when I was competing. Bruce Burnett was a national coach when I was competing, and then I was able to work under Bruce and have his mentorship. So, in a previous interview, we were just in Alpharetta, Georgia, and our Greco team there, John Bardis, sponsored the 3 Olympic teams at a training camp there, and he brought in a bunch of mentors to work with specifically the Greco team, but we all had access to them. And I sat around talking with Coach Jay Robinson a lot, and Jay said something that really seemed very appropriate to me as well. As he said, I'm not a real innovative guy. He said, but I can take things that others have done well and apply it to my situation, and we know Jay's an innovative guy, right? So like when he says something like that,
yeah, you're not innovative. Yeah, whatever. I'm calling BS on that one.
Right. He's the epitome of innovation in a lot of ways, in building a powerhouse program. But what he's saying is like we've all learned things from others. We're all taking things, and that's the innovation. Is how does it apply to you? How does it fit this scenario? And I feel like that's what I've been able to do. Is I'm a good counterfeiter. Mark Sprague was a visionary, and Floyd Vaughn was a visionary, and my dad was a visionary in not wrestling technique, right? Technique is the nuts and bolts, and they all those guys are great technicians, but it's how you apply things, and it's the guy that comes in, John Smith, when he came into wrestling innovated and revolutionized the sport. All those things were around before. Why didn't somebody else do that? It's because he looked at it differently than everybody else. Coach Gable has done that. Cale Sanderson's doing that right now. And, if I can do that a little bit, then that's what I'm striving to do. I don't know if I'm doing it. As time remains to be seen when I'm done, somebody else will tell me if I did it or not.
You've still got a long career ahead of you, but when you look at coming into this building and knowing the distinguished member, there's certain checklists that you've got to hit. You got to be this. You got to be good at this. You got to be good at this, and you've got all the checks already, both as an athlete and as a coach. So and now in the Hall of Fame. So now, as a coach, what are your next goals? What else is there for you to accomplish?
Everything. You start over every day. As soon as you're done with a competition, the next one is there tomorrow. And so, and the same responsibility and the same, as long as the passion's in there, right? And I still love it. And all these athletes and all my colleagues, you love it, right? We're wrestling junkies. We love this thing. And so it doesn't matter what happened yesterday because we still love it. So what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, we're going to lace up our shoes and we're going to get after it, right? We're going to sit behind this mic and talk about it and try to promote it the best way we can do that. And these athletes are out here sweating and bleeding and breaking their bodies to become stronger and better and faster and higher. And they still want it, and there's a huge responsibility to that commitment. Some of these people are putting 15, 20 years into this pursuit, and their parents finances and their parents' time and their training partners and their coaches and their college coaches and their RTCs and all of their friends and all of their family. And so, it's every day. Starts again.
The awards, it's not just a granite stone with a younger version of you etched into it. It's also a medal, and you've got experiences. You've got an NCAA championship, you've got a world championship, you've got a team title, you've got now this medal. What's it feel like when you get bestowed something like this? I mean, what's that medal feel like right now?
It's interesting. It's very interesting. It's not like standing on a podium.
You're also not beaten up from a day or two of competition.
Definitely not as sore as I would have been. This one just seems like a tremendous honor. It's very humbling because I don't feel like I did anything to get it. I feel like, whatever. The other inductees and honorees this weekend, I'm reading through their bios and I'm like, I'm not sure they got the right guy here at the end. It's like, how did I sneak in with this group?
It's also a pretty cool class on how everybody's interconnected in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like
Gary, my longtime colleague, Bruce, both my coach and my mentor as a coaching leader. Byers and I actually lived next door to each other in the training center for
and his one of the people here for him was his teammate Keith, who's your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So he got to double up on honors. Like he was here for two people.
Well, and Byers and I are good friends. Both live in Colorado Springs, and we have interests outside of wrestling. He rides bikes, and I don't ride motorcycle much anymore, but I used to ride with him quite a bit.
You got that fatherhood thing you're working on too.
Yeah. So it's a tremendous award. And going back to one of the first questions you asked is like, all my heroes are honored in this building, and to think that I'm being talked about in that group is like kind of mind blowing a little bit. But I still don't know. Maybe that's why they postponed it a year. They used the pandemic as an excuse, but they're still scratching their head. I'm not quite sure if we're going to let this guy in. We'll give it a little more time.
I asked Byers what was more special to him. Was it the individual world championship in 2002 or the team world title in 2007? And his answer was the Armed Forces Championships, winning that over the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. You see how he's wired now. In your respect, you've coached a world championship team and you've won an individual title. What are the levels of importance to those, and which one weighs a little heavier for you? Which one means more?
They weigh differently, for sure, right? Like, I was 33 when I won the individual world title for myself, and which is older, right?
Would that take 27 years to accomplish?
Yeah,
essentially.
20 years. I started when I was 5, so at that point, like, I believed it my whole life, but you're starting to get to a point where, like, man, is this thing ever going to happen? And so it was a very powerful sense of satisfaction to accomplish that, not only for myself but for my family and everybody I've already talked about. And there's a lot that goes into that type of accomplishment for an individual, there's a village behind him, right, that's made that thing possible. And so when you can do that with a team, right, now you're talking about 8 individuals. At that time, there's 8 weights. It's a lot, right? There's a lot of satisfaction and reward. It's a different sense of accomplishment because I feel like I was part of it. I didn't do it. The athletes did it. The personal coaches did it. The RTCs have done it. And we certainly have a hand in it at a high level in organizing, coordinating, thinking about training, and what each individual needs specifically, and communicating with their staff. Hey, this is what we see. What do you guys, and all of that collaboration is fun, and that becomes a reward. Is when it works out, when it pays off like it did, and we're hopeful we can do it again. And certainly believe we have the people to do it.
And like this, you're a lot less sore.
Yeah. So, and I honestly, I think that's what Byron. So in a short sense, we're kind of talking about camaraderie, right? It's relationship. So whether it's relationship between you as an individual and the team that's helping you get to the top of the podium, or it's the relationship you have with me as a coach or administrator who is looking after hundreds of senior level athletes that are trying to get to the top of the podium, or Byers, who's been at the top of the podium as an athlete and as a team member, both on the U.S. World Team and in the Armed Forces. Right? It's all about that camaraderie. And the Armed Forces, we know, is all the branches. They have that team atmosphere, right? They have that team culture where it's Army versus Navy, or Army versus Marines, or Marines versus, and so that helps elevate each other. I think the camaraderie thing is the consistent element of all of it.
Camaraderie, wrestling family, and we'll get you back to your family. Bill, congratulations on the honor.
Thanks.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.